Chicago Bears interim head coach Thomas Brown absolutely nailed his first press conference as the leader of this team. And he has a legitimate shot to knock off that interim title and take this head coaching job permanently.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On the show today, I want to take a look at the candidacy of interim head coach Thomas Brown, who has a legitimate chance to be the permanent head coach when this is all said and done. He's still a long shot, but I don't think it's completely out of the question. And he certainly had about the best possible first impression you could hope for. He nailed his press conference, but there's more to being a head coach than just nailing the press conference. So we'll kind of take a look at what he needs to do in terms of culture and leadership around this team, and how it's not just going to be about wins and losses this season, but the results of these games will matter too, and it will also matter who he's up against among the other head coaching candidates the Chicago Bears might consider. But given the kind of wild, crazy weekend that the Bears had as an organization, losing in that way to the Lions on Thanksgiving, having Matt Eberflus's morning press conference, then firing him, then having Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren in kind of a strange press conference on Monday, the organization has been kind of left in a whirlwind here. And Thomas Brown came out for his press conference around 12:15-ish on Monday and really showed a lot of contrast to what we had just seen in not only the previous press conference, but really the previous, my day math is wrong, 72 hours, whatever it was, dating back to Thursday. What he was able to do in terms of how he carries himself and how he commands a room, really, I think, not only was just super impressive to me, but also felt like exactly what the Chicago Bears need right now. And if he can prove that he's what the Chicago Bears need right now, that's the first step towards proving he's what the Chicago Bears need in the long term. He still has a lot to prove, still has a long way to go, but I don't think you can start any better than this when he talks about what the team needs right now and what he's going to do as leader of this team moving forward. And this is all just part of his opening statement before any questions have been asked. This is how he starts off. This is the message he's going to send. And listen to not only the words he's saying, but also his delivery, his confidence, the way he carries himself throughout this. It's a masterclass in what you would want someone to do in this situation, having really been kind of thrown in there pretty abruptly.
The initial goal is to unify this football team. Everybody in the same accord, moving in the same direction, speaking the same language, and attacking together. So no more divisions. As far as the outside noise, we ignore it because it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. What matters is our daily approach, us working together, and execute when it's time to go execute. So I started with that first. Then I talked about just got to do a better job being a more disciplined football team, on and off the football field. Talked about the penalties. Pre-snap penalties were all kind of boiled down to a lack of focus. So one play at a time mentality. After that play's over with, hit the reset button, get back in the huddle, go do it again, and over again. Post-snap penalties. So lack of attention to detail when it comes to techniques. So we're going to do a better job as coaches to coach it the right way, demand it is done the right way, drill it properly, and our guys go execute when it's time to go execute. And I just talked about as far as our identity as a football team. I said this initially, always believe in and stand by it. Football is a violent game. It rewards those that play the game violently. So physical at every position is going to be our mentality.
You can really see why players on offense bought in really quickly when he took over from Shane Waldron as offensive coordinator. And you can see how players on defense won't have too much trouble buying in quickly as he takes over from Matt Eberflus. Like if you've heard Shane Waldron press conferences and you compare that to the way Thomas Brown just carries himself there, it's really striking how much better he is at this. And again, press conference is not the measurement of a great head coach, but even the things he talks about there, right? Right away, hey, there's been a lot of division here. Hey, we're all in the same direction now. No outside noise, no BS. We are a team, hard stop, end of conversation. We need to be more disciplined. We have penalty issues. But just like how direct and focused and clear he is in his answers there. Pre-snap penalties, that's about focus. We need to be more dialed in. Post-snap penalties, that's about technique. And then takes the blame and accountability on himself and the coaching staff, says, we as coaches need to teach that better then, right? He's not saying post-snap penalty is technique and those players are being too sloppy, right? It's like, no, we need to do it better. It's the accountability that had been missing from the coaching staff all season. Talks about having an identity of being violent, being physical. And he goes on to say after the clip, I could have played the whole thing really, but these are non-negotiables is how he describes it. It's like, as a team, we're going to have 3 key abilities: coachability, accountability, and dependability. And that's all of us, myself included. I'm not above being coached. He's even as the head coach, I'm not above being coachable, being accountable, and being dependable. Like, it's just like word for word what everyone wants to hear and what everyone needs to hear and what they need from a head coach filling in this spot for Matt Eberflus. Like, I can't even find areas where it's like, oh, you should have really said this better. It could have been more clear about that. Like, he just carries it really well, and he's not reading a script. He's not hitting a bunch of buzzwords or talking in circles around stuff. He's like, I'm in charge now. Here's how we're going to do things. Here's what it's going to look like. Everyone knows what's going on. We're all on the same page. We do this together. Like, boom, that is knocking it out of the park. That is as incredible of a first impression as you could hope for from him as your interim head coach. And so as you start to think about him as a real candidate here to maybe potentially be an option to take over as permanent head coach after the season, so much of that conversation is going to be about culture and leadership and communication. And he has 5 weeks here to show Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles that he can establish that and get that buy-in from the players and look like a coach who knows what he's doing as a head coach, who belongs in that role, who was born for that role. And we hear Kevin Warren talk about, we want a leader of men. We don't want a bunch of yes men and rah-rah stuff. Like, we want someone who can communicate and lead. Like, that's exactly what Thomas Brown is showing you in just one press conference. Again, just one press conference, not handing him the job just yet. He has got a lot he still needs to prove over these 5 games. But I think a lot of it's going to be about this sort of locker room stuff and off-field stuff, even more so than, okay, how many games does Thomas Brown need to win in order to become the head coach? Like, I don't think if he wins 4 games, he gets to be the head coach, but if he only wins 2 games, he doesn't get to be the head coach. I don't think the exact results are going to be the factor that swings in his direction. But it doesn't mean that the results don't matter at all either, because yes, he has to prove himself as a head coach. He also still has to prove himself even as an offensive coordinator and show us over these 5 weeks that not only can he be a good offensive coordinator, but also a good offensive coordinator while also juggling head coach duties. So I want to take a look at what's in store for this Bears offense and what we need to see from the team on the field to lead Thomas Brown to keep the head coaching job next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. But with Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. So say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. They all come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's MINT, mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by Prize Picks, the better way to play daily fantasy sports, because Prize Picks puts you in complete control. Unlike the other daily fantasy platforms where you're setting a lineup and your lineup has to beat out 500 other lineups to get first place and win anything, with Prize Picks, it's you versus the projections available. Prize Picks sets stat lines for each player, and you pick whether they'll do more or less than their Prize Picks projection. And if you get your picks right on at least 2 players, you can win up to 100 times your money. Just gives you a little something extra to watch out for and root for and have stakes in each game each week. Download the Prize Picks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Even if your first $5 lineup is incorrect, you're still going to get those $50 instantly when you download the app and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Prize Picks. Run your game. Thomas Brown needs to run this locker room and this team well as a leader and a communicator. He also needs to continue to prove that he can run this offense well. He has run this offense well so far for 3 games as offensive coordinator. But 3 games, 3 great games perhaps, but 3 games as offensive coordinator is not enough to check the box and say, yep, he is for sure a great offensive mind who's going to be the right coach to mold Caleb Williams for the long-term future. Right? We were having this conversation a little bit about Thomas Brown even before Matt Eberflus was fired, right? Whether Thomas Brown is your interim head coach or just your offensive coordinator for the rest of the year, we wanted to see what this Bears offense would do over the final 5 games to get a sense of whether Brown could be an offensive coordinator for the next head coach to try and keep some continuity in there, or even before Eberflus was fired, Thomas Brown was maybe still in the conversation for head coaching interviews. But now, as the interim head coach, it's sort of double duty here, right? He has to still prove himself as an offensive coordinator the same way he would if Matt Eberflus was still employed. But now with Eberflus gone and Thomas Brown gone, the challenge steps up even further to say, hey, you were doing great with the offense for 3 games. We need you to not only keep doing great with the offense for the final 5 games, but keep doing great with that offense while also being less hands-on with that offense. Can you properly delegate responsibilities to where you're not micromanaging it? And he talked about that many times in his press conference. Said, I'm not going to micromanage this. I'm going to let guys do their job. That part's the easy part for him. But can you lead well enough that the offense will continue to succeed without you actually running the offense? He promoted wide receivers coach Chris Beatty to offensive coordinator. So Chris Beatty's the one leading those meetings. Obviously, Thomas Brown is still going to be heavily involved in the offense and still be the leader of that side of the ball, but he's not going to be the true offensive coordinator anymore. And there's going to be duties and responsibilities that he is going to have to task Chris Beatty with handling, but how well Chris Beatty handles them will reflect back on the head coach for his ability to pick the correct offensive coordinator, to delegate properly, communicate properly, and empower that coach properly to still have a good offense. And for Thomas Brown to be able to manage, hey, I want to be hands-on with this offense to be as good as they can be because he's an offensive coach and that's his specialty there. But also, you got to manage a bunch of other duties. And how you juggle that while also still maintaining a strong offense will go a long way towards proving whether or not Thomas Brown is a good head coach candidate or even, someone who you would want to keep around as an offensive coordinator on this team or another team. I mean, it's an audition for the rest of the NFL for him as well. And so you start to apply this a little bit more granularly to this upcoming Chicago Bears schedule, and it's not like it's going to be easy for him. You look at the remaining 5 games. We know San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay. It's weird to think that the 49ers have the worst defense of any of those groups. But everyone besides the 49ers is ranking in the top 12 in defense right now. And all three of your divisional opponents are ranking in the top 10 in defense right now. So the 49ers rank 24th in defense as of today, as of this week. The Vikings rank 5th, the Lions rank 2nd, the Seahawks rank 12th, and the Packers rank 9th. This will not be an easy stretch for Thomas Brown and this Bears offense to try and maintain a high level of production. That being said, if they are able to do so, there won't be any doubts, right? I mean, yes, okay, it's only 8 games, so there can be doubts, but let me rephrase that. There won't be any excuses, right? Because this happened at the end of Luke Getsy's first season, right? Where, the offense really started showing some stuff down the stretch there. Or at the end, even at the end of Luke Getsy's second season, a little bit. The offense started to put some things together here. They must really be turning a corner. And it was like, well, yeah, but they played a bunch of bad defenses in that stretch. So were they actually getting better, or were they just playing worse defenses? We kind of had those questions. We will not have that question with Thomas Brown and this Bears offense over the rest of the year. You're playing 3 top 10 defenses, 4 top 15 defenses over these final 5 games. If you play well, you earn it. You have earned it against some of the best defenses in football. Now, if you play poorly, well, you play poorly, and that's not going to get you the head coaching job. But there won't be any doubt about whether the success they have is legitimate or not. We can still question whether 8 games of Thomas Brown as offensive coordinator is enough to be fully convinced or not. That's valid. But the quality of opponent will not be a question here. And I think it's going to be a great test. The good news for Thomas Brown is that he's already done it against 3 of those exact defenses. And all 3 of those defenses are top 10 defenses. He's done it against the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions the last 3 games, who are the 9th, 5th, and 2nd ranked defenses. So he's already been able to do it against not only 3 top 10 defenses, but 3 of the defenses he'll get to face again. He already has experience against these opponents, which will go a long way towards being able to do so. But how he's able to follow up the first time with the second time will be really interesting, because now the Packers have tape on how Thomas Brown's going to attack them. The Packers did not have tape on Thomas Brown entering that game. They were trying to judge based on the Bears offense, what they had seen, but Thomas Brown threw some new wrinkles in that Packers game that the Bears hadn't really shown on offense up to that point. He had a certain element of surprise, or if not surprise, at least, unexpected offense coming from there. So the Packers had not much of a way to prepare for that. The Vikings only had a game to prepare for it, and the Lions had 2 games worth to prepare for it. But now all 3 of those teams will not only have more games to prepare based off, but specifically games against their defense. So Brian Flores can say, okay, this is what Thomas Brown did against us 2 weeks ago. Let's now do this to counter based on what he did to us the first time. And so if Thomas Brown can then have the counter to the counter and stay one step ahead and say, okay, because this worked so well against the Vikings, I think they're going to respond in this way to try and counteract that. So we got to be one step ahead and respond to what we think they're going to respond with. Like, that's how you separate yourself as an offensive play caller and an offensive coordinator in the process of trying to separate yourself as a head coaching candidate for this team. So I think it bodes well for the Bears as an organization that they're really going to get to see either way. Does Thomas Brown know what he's doing as an offensive coordinator here or not? Because there's no skirting around or getting by with excuses against some of the teams coming up on the schedule. So we'll learn one way or another if things are going to work on offense or not. So Thomas Brown has to keep proving himself as an offensive coordinator, has to prove himself as a leader, as a head coach, as someone at the front face of an organization. And even beyond that, there's still obstacles in Thomas Brown's way. Even if he nails absolutely everything over the final 5 weeks of the season, the Bears go 5-0 and look great on offense. They cut down on the penalties and they're disciplined and all that stuff and has the locker room behind him. He still has other head coaching candidates he's competing with that may just end up being stronger candidates where the Bears say, listen, Thomas, you did nothing wrong, but we just got to go with this other guy because we like him better. So we'll kind of look at what Thomas Brown is up against and what the path could still look like to him getting the head coaching job over, say, Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, FanDuel wants to jumpstart your winnings by giving you $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So you can place a $5 bet on anything, on For example, the Bears and 49ers this week, where the Bears are currently 3.5-point underdogs on the road. The money line is Bears plus 176 if you want the upset straight up, or the over-under is set at 44.5 points. A $5 bet on any of those or any of your other favorite sports. If you get that first bet right, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets on top of the winnings that you get for your bet. Or you can place live bets on the NFL as well. If you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join the day and go for that $150 in bonus bets. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thomas Brown is not the favorite to become the Chicago Bears' next head coach. He is a little bit more of a long shot candidate here. You know, you don't expect the interim head coach to get the job. It doesn't happen a ton, and people rightly point out that rarely has it worked out well for the organization that keeps their interim head coach. You can look right over to the Las Vegas Raiders, whom, you know, I'm not ready to bury Antonio Pierce after just one season as head coach. But I think a lot of Raiders fans and even some Raiders players may be feeling like maybe they didn't make the right choice sticking with Antonio Pierce there, even though all the players in the organization backed him. I think Davante Adams spoke up about him, Max Crosby, other players wanted him there, and, 6 months later, Davante Adams wants out, and, sometimes doing exactly what your players want isn't the best decision for your organization. And there's going to be some pretty strong candidates out there that have, I would say, objectively better resumes than Thomas Brown in their previous roles, to try and then make the argument that, no, actually, it should be me, not Thomas Brown, that gets to be Chicago Bears head coach. And that's one more obstacle here in Thomas Brown's way. Even if he has a perfect end of the season, is 5 games as interim head coach enough to outweigh the resume of somebody like, Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions, or, any of the other head coaching candidates that, pick your favorite head coaching candidates. I mean, a lot of the names have been thrown out there. Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator. Mike Vrabel, the former Titans head coach. Cliff Kingsbury, the Commanders offensive coordinator, who, by the way, I want nothing to do with Cliff Kingsbury. Absolutely not. My last choice as Bears head coach. And if the Bears hired Kingsbury as head coach, I will not try and defend it in any way, shape, or form. Terrible decision. But Joe Brady, the Bills offensive coordinator. Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator. Even people have thrown out Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame head coach. I mean, a lot of these guys have some pretty impressive resumes here. And we don't need to go through and stack up like, okay, exactly how Thomas Brown compares to each of these guys individually. But, we've seen Ben Johnson orchestrate one of the best offenses in football for multiple seasons now and exceeding expectations in every way, shape, and form. We've seen Aaron Glenn uplift a Lions defense that has a ton of injuries, and now they're playing like a top 5 defense in the NFL. We've seen Mike Vrabel turn the culture around in Tennessee and get them to a bunch of playoff appearances and stuff. And I'm going to skip Cliff Kingsbury on that, but you know what I mean? We've seen a lot of these coaches have consistent success in their previous jobs. Ben Johnson's been a good offensive coordinator for a little while. Aaron Glenn's been a good defensive coordinator for a little while. Todd Monken's been a good offensive coordinator for a little while. Joe Brady's had years of successful offensive coordinating. Thomas Brown has been an offensive coordinator for 1 year and 3 games. He was an offensive coordinator for the Panthers, where he called plays for about half a season, and now he's got about a half a season of being an offensive coordinator for the Bears. That's not a lot of sample size to lean on and say, okay, it's been 8 games, but we've seen enough. We'll give it to you. Versus, Ben Johnson, who is, I think, at this point, everybody's most popular favorite candidate here. Ben Johnson has been the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator since 2022. He was a passing game coordinator before that. He's been on multiple organizations in the NFL. Like, he's been able to point to, like, hey, I've done this multiple years with different personnel on offense. I've coached on different teams. I've seen different schemes. I run this offense by myself. There's not like an offensive head coach necessarily above me. Like, Dan Campbell's more of the leader type than the scheme type, and Johnson's been like not just great at it, but like the best at it, arguably. Like, a lot of these coaches have a lot they can point to that Thomas Brown cannot. And so Thomas Brown needs to not only nail these final 5 weeks as head coach and be perfect in every way, shape, or form, he then also has to nail his interview which, by the way, he interviewed with his team for offensive coordinator last year and didn't get it. Now, Ryan Poles seemed to very clearly make that a Matt Eberflus decision, not a Ryan Poles decision. And so there may be some merit to the idea that Thomas Brown could interview better this time without Matt Eberflus making the decision as opposed to, how it was last time. But nonetheless, Thomas Brown has to nail the interview, and he needs these other candidates to not nail the interview. He needs Ben Johnson to be the offensive coordinator who's a great offensive coordinator, but maybe not a great head coach. Maybe not a great leader. Maybe not a great communicator. I don't know that. I'm just saying we've never seen Ben Johnson as a head coach. We don't hear a lot from Ben Johnson. We don't see a lot of it from Ben Johnson. There's not a lot of strong examples of his leadership in a way that tells you in the positive or negative how he would do as head coach. We don't know. It's an unknown how good of a head coach Ben Johnson might be. He's a very, very good proven offensive coordinator. There's no doubting him as a coordinator. There is doubting him as a head coach because we just don't know. And Thomas Brown could point to it and say, hey, I was your head coach for 5 weeks and you can see how I did at it. You didn't see how Ben Johnson's on a head coach. You could be, we've seen plenty of smart offensive coordinators become head coaches and then be bad at being a head coach, and they were just a better coordinator all along. I mean, same can be true for Aaron Glenn on defense, or Joe Brady, or Todd Monken, any of these, offensive coordinators who've never been head coaches before. You can point to it and say, we don't know how they're going to be as leaders, and so maybe they don't interview well. Maybe they don't answer the questions well because they've never been a head coach before, and they don't really know exactly how to handle that properly. And so then by comparison, maybe Thomas Brown nails the interview and gets the job over them. Now then you go to somebody like Mike Vrabel, who really fits the bill as leader of men, culture, tough guy, CEO, leader of the organization. That seems to fit kind of what the Bears sound like they want there. But Mike Vrabel's had some of that history of not being able to hold on to good offensive coordinators or consistently employ good offensive coordinators. And his whole thing kind of wore out a little bit with the Tennessee Titans. Now, he still has an above 500 record as a head coach. He still had plenty of success with them, and I think he still is a good head coach. Is he a great head coach? I don't know, but he's still a pretty decent head coach. But you do have a little bit of questions, he's going to have to account for, who's your offensive coordinator going to be? What's your plan for Caleb Williams? What's your plan if that offensive coordinator has a good year and then leaves? Who are you going to replace him with? What kind of bench do you have? How are you going to have this offense planned out for our young quarterback? Because that's what's going to be priority number one. And Thomas Brown can come in that interview and say, hey, I've been coaching him all season. I know exactly what to do with him. He and I have this great relationship. Look at all the success we had together. Look at how much better it got when I got in there. I'm going to be the head coach. I'm never going to leave. No one's going to hire me away as head coach. So I'll be here for every step of Caleb Williams' development, and it'll be continuity. You can make the head-to-head argument for Thomas Brown against any of these coaches individually. But chances are that at least one or two of those coaches individually are going to be better candidates because whatever questions you have about them, they're going to have an answer for. And you're going to say, oh, you know what, Ben Johnson, we had a question about your leadership, but you really nailed the interview and proved to us that you're a good head coach candidate, so we're going to give you the job, even if Thomas Brown never did anything wrong. But it's just sort of the lack of experience and the just where he is in his career. It's a little fresh, a little young for Thomas Brown to be a head coach, not in terms of his age, but just in terms of his experience. 1.5-ish years as an offensive coordinator is uncommon to make the jump to head coach unless you were truly, truly, truly exceptional in those 1.5 years. And he wasn't in his first year. And so far he has been in the second year, but is that enough? That's what he has to prove to the Chicago Bears, and that's what he has to prove to us. I certainly have my doubts about whether Thomas Brown will actually get the job, but man, he nailed that first press conference in a way that I'm kind of rooting for him to get the job. I mean, I want the Bears to get the best candidate, certainly, but I'm rooting for Thomas Brown to be great over the final 5 weeks and give them no choice. Thomas Brown, make it be so perfect in every way that they have to keep you as interim head coach. That's what I want to see. I want to see that story because, man, I was ready to run through a brick wall when I heard him do his opening press conference. He really just can command a room and looks and sounds and carries himself like what you would want your head coach to be. But it starts with the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday, and we're going to get the scoop on the 49ers with our friend Brian Peacock from Locked On 49ers. That'll be on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Bears. It'll be crossover Thursday with Locked On 49ers. So make sure you come back tomorrow and take a listen to that and make Locked On Bears your first listen each and every single day. That way you can keep up with all of our daily in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. The best way to do that, hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate everyone who tunes into Locked On Bears every single day, makes us your first listen, and in exchange, you know that you're going to start your day with another opportunity to bear down.